Hello friends, I wanted to do a quick tutorial for you before we begin reading all of the different children's books this semester. In our assigned reading, there will be some resources that are provided to you with checklists and things to be thinking about as you're reading certain genres to determine if it's a quality book or not. However, I wanted you to keep in mind that different organizations and different resources have their own list of what is quality, and so it's good to keep in mind some of the different questions from a variety of sources for what determines quality in each of the genres. So if you need a place to go to that has all the genres together, you can go to this presentation, and I also will be showing you an example of how it's important for students in a classroom to understand how to evaluate quality by thinking about a set of criteria. So I just wanted to show you quickly some of the criteria that you'll be considering. This is actually taken from our assigned readings, but if you're going to be evaluating picture books, these are some of the questions that you would be thinking about as you read. And in our book presentations, you could answer some of these questions to show why you chose your book and why it answers some of these questions. You can get detailed within each genre. So within picture books, you could evaluate wordless picture books with some of these questions. This is not from our assigned reading. It's from a different resource, but when we do have our assigned reading for traditional literature, it'll have similar things that you would consider as you're determining if it's a good quality book or not. Tall tales and fairy tales would have different things that you would be considering as criteria. Folk tales, dictionaries is one that you don't really can think about when you need to determine if it's a good dictionary or not, but it does have its own sort of questions you'd be thinking about. Encyclopedias, biographies, chapter book biographies, which are often written in a different text structure using descriptive text structure. This one is not in our assigned reading, but I wanted to add it in because sometimes people wonder, why did they choose that book to win the Newbery, or that book to win the Caldecott, or that book to win the Coretta Scott King Award. So this is some of the criteria that is used when they're evaluating award-winning books from different points of view: literary, educational, and socio-political considerations. So I really like that criteria list. Toward the end of the course, we'll be talking about some critical aspects of children's literature and how to analyze them more critically if they're representing equally gender, socioeconomic status, and other racial equality, different sorts of critical analysis that way. And then 2 more genres with its criteria. And also if you are going to be evaluating quality multicultural literature. So you can pause on this presentation if you need to look through some of these details. You can also go to our different weeks that we'll be talking about some of these genres and see what the assigned reading has to say, but I wanted to just remind you that that's one resource of criteria listed, and a lot of different organizations have their own list. I will now show you an example of the classroom, how this can be applied. So I'm hopping over to my blog because I wanted to show you this activity I did in the classroom for many years. I called it the gallery walk, and actually I need to preface it with a story. One night I was eating dinner with my husband, and we started having a conversation about what makes a really good romantic comedy movie. And we started brainstorming the criteria that we felt needed to be in a really great romantic comedy movie. So of course, I started writing it down. One of them was it needed a really good kiss toward the end of the movie, you know, that you had they built up the suspense, and finally there was the kiss, the romantic kiss, and they needed to have a funny friend or some sort of foil character that could relieve the tension now and then during the scenes, and they needed to definitely have a hero because every good movie needs a hero, and it needed to have an emotional connection with the audience within the first 5 minutes, or you wouldn't care what happened to the main character. And anyway, you can see we kept listing this criteria, and then we started brainstorming, well, what movies would fall under these criteria that we've created. And then after that, we started thinking about, well, if that's romantic comedy movies, what would be the criteria for a really good scary movie or a really good drama, etc. So we were thinking of it with movies, but that got me thinking, I bet this would be an interesting assignment for a children's literature class. So I started this assignment with pre-service teachers, and then I brought it to the classroom. So that's how this assignment was born, and I called it the gallery walk. And so here are some examples of how it turned out. And what the assignment entailed was each person, whether it was an adult student or a child student, they would think of a certain number of genres that they wanted to include. Then they would think of the criteria, and they would determine what makes a good list that would be used to evaluate that genre, and then they had to come up with a certain number of choices within that genre, and then they'd had to display it. So this person they framed it actually, but they had their genres in the different colors, their criteria listed at the top, and then their book choices with the book cover showing. Here's another example. They had their different genres that they decided on, and then they had in the center their criteria that they brainstormed, and then the book choices that would match it. And some of these got really creative. Some of them were read-alouds, some of them were childhood favorites, some of them were Dr. Seuss. I mean, all the different categories that they selected were interesting to see. I think this was, I don't know what category this was, but I think it was books to start the year off with in a classroom. This person listed the criteria out in bullet form, and then they put the book covers around it. Holiday books, dog stories, her favorite picks, and books for tweens. Their categories were teen issues, romance and friendship, fantasy, mysteries and suspense, and adventures. Teen issues, is that what I said? I liked this creative format. This person was an artist, so they got this was quite a large sketchbook, and they drew out their gallery walk. So they had fantasy, the criteria listed, and some of the book covers around there. And then scary books, survival books, teen books. There's one I can't see. Oh, humor. So I thought that was really creative. I like doing these kind of projects that are open-ended so you can see the creativity of the students. This was one other display. I can't really see it very well. This one was made into a book out of paper bags. If you're crafty, you might have attempted a paper bag book, but every time you turn the page, it would have the criteria listed and some of the book choices on the other side, and then you would turn it as if it was a book. And then this was another poster. So there you have it, an example of how you can think about different genres and think about the criteria that would determine a quality book in that genre, and then choosing books that fit in there. So we're going to be doing that with some of the traditional genres, but you can also get creative with students. Thanks. See you later.